10 things you didn't know about Rolex. Are you prepared to have your mind blown by some fascinating Rolex secrets? This video will reveal 10 little-known Rolex secrets. Rolex is now a brand with an unrivaled reputation. No, seriously. Rolex surpassed Google and Walt Disney on the list of the world's most reputable companies in 2016. Despite its secrecy and near-impeccable track record, we dug up some unexpected moments from Rolex's past. But before we dive into all of this, be sure to subscribe to our channel for anything Rolex, if you haven't already. The mysterious air that surrounds the Swiss behemoth can be attributed in part to the fact that it has always maintained a high level of discretion regarding the activities that take place within its premises. Hello to all of you. Welcome back to Watch Devine. In today's video, we'll reveal 10 little-known things about Rolex. 1. The Domino's Pizza Rolex. Domino's Pizza Rolex is first on the list. Doesn't it sound intriguing? As far as oxymorons go, this has to be at the top of the list. Domino's began rewarding hard-working managers with personalized Rolex Air King watches sometime in the 1980s. It's unknown who in the Domino's hierarchy first chose to place the colorful logo on the dial of a watch long lauded for its aesthetics, but rumor has it that he or she did not win Designer of the Year that year. We think the only plausible explanation for Rolex agreeing to let this happen was that it had been infiltrated by an Omega mold. The Rolex Air King Domino's are so unpopular that you can get them for as little as $2,000 on the vintage market. 2. Rolex and American Psycho. So, what do we have next on our list? It's Rolex and American Psycho. When Bret Easton Ellis's American Psycho was released in 1991, it sparked a flood of newspaper columns. The plot of this devilish comedy follows the social life of Patrick Bateman, an amoral Wall Street product with an insatiable thirst for bloodshed. Bateman appreciates the finer things in life and is well-versed in the New York restaurant scene. The word Rolex appears over 25 times in the book, including when Bateman, enraged, insists, "Don't touch the Rolex." Despite the fact that the film stars the flawless Christian Bale, Rolex refused to be associated with it and insisted on changing the line to "Don't touch the watch."
Don't touch the watch.
However, Bale's Bateman did wear a Rolex Datejust 16013 in the film, which went on to become one of the biggest cult hits. Amazing, right? 3. A Rolex Perpetual Calendar? How about a Rolex Perpetual Calendar? Of course, a timepiece that also tells the date is nothing new. However, due to the varying lengths of the months in the Gregorian calendar, which is the most widely used in the world, the simplest form of calendar watch must be manually adjusted 5 times a year. So at the end of each month with fewer than 31 days, you, the wearer, have to manually adjust the date to keep it correct. In 1762, English horologist Thomas Mudge invented the first perpetual calendar movement, which was used in a pocket watch, now showcased in the British Museum in London. Now, the debate over who first put such a calendar mechanism actually inside a wristwatch comes down to a 2-horse race between the legendary Swiss maison Breguet and Patek Philippe, masters of the astounding timepiece complication. Patek actually filed a patent for a perpetual calendar in 1889, and their first wristwatch with this function was produced in 1925, using a movement from a lady's pendant watch. But Breguet produced the first wristwatch-specific example a few years later, in 1929, with the Breguet number 4244. So, who truly won this battle has long been the subject of discussion. So what about Rolex? Well, Rolex does not monkey around when it comes to haute horlogerie. So when a perpetual calendar, the ultimate complication, appeared in a gold Rolex Datejust case, everybody immediately thought it was a forgery. However, it turns out that it was not a forgery at all. It was a fully functional Rolex modification created by the so-called King of Complications, Franck Muller, prior to him launching his own luxury watch brand in 1989. 4. The Rolex that solved a murder case. Now, the next little-known Rolex fact might be the most astonishing thing that we have on our list. This story received a lot of attention at the time because of its twisting plot, but it's now 20 years old and worth revisiting. Albert Johnson Walker is a Canadian con artist who stole millions of dollars from his victims. He fled to Europe in the early 1990s in order to avoid various fraud charges. He changed his name and established a business in England with a fellow Canadian, Ronald Platt. Walker assisted Platt in returning to his homeland, but insisted on Platt leaving his driver's license, signature stamp, and birth certificate, claiming that they were required for the operation of their business. Walker then took over Platt's identity. Platt ran out of money a few years later and returned to England, where he met Walker. Walker then murdered Platt on a fishing trip. He tied him to an anchor and dumped him in the English Channel. Platt's body washed up on English shores 2 weeks later, completely unrecognizable except for his Rolex watch, which was still ticking. Police quickly unraveled the story and convicted Walker by inspecting the watch's service records. He is currently still in jail on a life sentence. Are you enjoying these little-known Rolex facts? If so, make sure to subscribe to our channel for anything Rolex. 5. The Rolex Texan by Gerald Genta. Let's continue with the fascinating story about the Rolex Texan designed by Gerald Genta. Gerald Genta was a legendary watchmaker who created some of the most recognizable watches in history, including the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak. Genta collaborated with a number of top watch brands during the 20th century, but few people are aware that he also worked for Rolex. Genta's The Texan, as Rolex enthusiasts dubbed it, featured a tonneau-shaped case, angular lines, and a chunky 3-link bracelet that was permanently attached to the case. Only 1,000 pieces of the Texan were ever made, and it was released just 2 years before the Royal Oak, which looks strikingly similar. 6. The Rolex Xerograph. So, this little-known Rolex on our list is the Rolex Xerograph. It is extremely difficult to find. According to Christie's, only 12 were ever made, and only 4 have ever been seen. It's barely distinguishable as a Rolex, and has some peculiar features, such as a mix of Roman and Arabic numerals. It was the first Rolex with a rotating bezel, and it was released in 1937. This model fetched more than $350,000 at a Christie's Geneva auction. What do you all think about that? 7. The first fluted bezel. The fluted bezel is very popular on the Rolex Datejust and other models. It's also used by many of the world's leading watch brands. Originally, it was designed as a method of attaching the bezel to the case. In 1926, Wilsdorf introduced the Oyster case. It was the first waterproof watch case in the world, and it would change the wristwatch's future. It had a ridged bezel, which had to be screwed into the case. Rolex chose it as an attractive aesthetic feature. 8. The Rolex Prince. The Rolex Prince, or Cellini Prince, is an official Rolex model that not everybody knows about, but many Rolex card-carrying members still have never seen or heard of it, unless they're watching this channel, of course. The original was released in 1928, and it was undoubtedly inspired by the success of Cartier's tank. It was on the dressier end of the Rolex spectrum and quickly became known as the doctor's watch, due to its large second subdial, which was ideal for timing a pulse. Today, the rectangular Rolex is available in a variety of metals and variations, all with the original Art Deco styling. 9. The first boyfriend watch. Boyfriend fashion is the trend of women wearing their boyfriend's clothes, like his favorite brand t-shirt, his ripped jeans, or whatever. It peaked when major fashion labels began producing men's styles in women's sizes and cuts. However, the boyfriend watch trend dates back to the late 1980s, when Sharon Stone was photographed wearing a black Submariner, traditionally considered to be a men's Rolex. Women have increasingly been wearing men's Rolex watches in recent decades, so Rolex no longer distinguishes between men's and women's watches on its website. Although the boyfriends might change, Sharon Stone still wears her Submariner. 10. It takes 1 year to make a Rolex. Rolex used to advertise that its watches take a year to manufacture. This was not an exaggeration and is still true today. Much of the work is automated and performed by high-tech machinery, but a significant portion is still done by hand. Many people wrongfully assume that Rolex movements are machine-made, but the reality is that humans hand-assemble movements with the assistance of machines. Rolex even finishes its parts by hand. Almost all pieces of each watch are made on the premises from raw materials and are thoroughly tested. This process takes approximately a year per watch. Do you know what time it is? It's the end of this video. Let us know in the comments which of these little-known Rolex secrets fascinated you the most. And if you liked this video, please like, comment, and share it. And don't forget to subscribe. Have a fantastic day.